Hi, this is State Representative Dave Yaccarino, and we're with State Senator Paul Ciccariello on the Dave and Paul Show. This is our second show. Today is August 23rd. We're going to discuss some issues we're working on this summer. We're out of legislative session currently, but in this job, it's really all year. It's 24/7, 365. I just want to introduce Senator Paul Ciccariello. It's good to be with you again, Paul.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. Thank you for having us, North Haven TV, for hosting us. We appreciate it.
I will say we're fortunate in North Haven and the whole district to have NHTV and all the local access for government and also educational. And we fight very hard to keep funding these wonderful programs that give so much education and information to our students and our citizens. And we're very fortunate to have NHTV and to be able to do this show. Also, we started our office hours again, Paul and I, to come out and visit us either at Moonrise Cafe or McDonald's. We have it on Facebook or we put it in the paper, but we need to hear from you. In order for us to do a good job, we want to hear from you and hear your concerns. That's the biggest part of the job, is listening and then trying to do something with it, and generally we do.
Absolutely. We had great success. It was very nice of our local business owners to host those meet and greet coffee hours with your legislator. We did one, like you said, Moonrise in Wallingford in East Haven.
North Haven.
Close, North Haven. We've been doing them all throughout the 34th, but here in North Haven, we did it on Washington Ave, as well as at McDonald's, right across from your store. Again, they were gracious enough to host. And we had a great turnout. Again, like Dave said, we really need to hear from the constituents to understand what's going on in district and what their perspective is about what they're hearing on what's going on at the Capitol. And truly, without having the conversations with our constituents, I don't know if we would be able to really do a good job to be the voice of our constituents if we didn't hear their concerns.
Paul, you make a good point, but also at the last two coffee hours, people came to us that sometimes feel funny just to call. They don't want to call your phone, but in person, you could take their information down and you could call whatever agency it is and work on their cases. And we've been very successful. And so I'm glad that people feel comfortable enough to come see us. And that's for us to do a good job, we really need to hear and listen, but then act on it. And we're honored and privileged that we could serve, but also to try to help people and help people. Many times people get upset about government, and we live in a different society today, but we're all here to try to help each other and do the best for each other, and to really work for a better community. We do it well with our first selectman in North Haven, Mike Frieda, and your respective mayors and first selectmen in your other district, and with the people of the community. So, anyway.
Absolutely. Part of the things that we do, again, is listening, but as Dave was mentioning, sometimes people have a hard time, especially in the current situation that we're in, getting a hold of certain state agencies. So some of the stuff that we help with, maybe unemployment, you have a DMV issue, you can't get through to somebody to answer a question you may have. There's a lot of issues that you need to get a hold of certain departments to get answers. And again, just with the sheer volume and the size of these departments, it takes forever to get through. Sometimes we could help get you to the right person to make the decisions, or at least be able to help you make the decisions to take your next steps. So, please feel free to reach out to myself and Dave if you have any issues with any state agencies, and we'll be able to help with that process. We're so fortunate to have great staff up there that help us navigate, those different departments. But that's something that we do on a daily basis for constituents. So if you have any issues with any state departments, again, please reach out to us, and we'd love to help out.
When I first got elected, Len, one of the things Len had mentioned to me, each agency has a liaison. The Department of Labor, Department of Consumer Protection, Department of Administrative Services, Veterans, and know those people, call them, have a coffee with them, have them come to your office, introduce yourself, and then give your district, and build those good relationships. And through that, I've been so fortunate to have worked with so many great people to help people in North Haven, and I know you're doing the same thing, meeting with, I don't want to say their names, but so many wonderful people. And many times they'll get the brunt of things, but the agencies are so large and so cumbersome. But we do our best to cut through the red tape. It shouldn't come to that, but that's how it is. We facilitate they do the same thing with, Rosa DeLaura's office or other federal offices. And many times we'll work with their offices where it's a federal and a state issue, and we'll work on that together. So we could we're not in session now, but we did go back a couple times this summer to try to do what every community in the state and probably in the country are having problems with juvenile crime. And it's not just, it's you maybe stealing some change out of your car. It's going into somebody's garages, sometimes physical altercations, stealing vehicles, taking personal property. And unfortunately, there was a person killed this summer in New Britain by an underage person that stole a car, and they might have had 13 or 14 or 20 arrests. We don't know. And then the family, there was a little shootout in Glastonbury. And I know you put some bills in, and we tried on the House side to address the issue. So maybe you want to elaborate on some of the things you want to do, what we're trying to do in the House. We're trying to do jointly, both House and Senate. And it's not just it's not a political issue. It's something that we need to do together as both parties. We need to do this for the betterment of our society, but also these kids to get them on the right path.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, and this is in just about every phase in life, profession, etc., if you don't have any consequences for your actions, individuals aren't going to learn the repercussions, therefore continue to do the same thing over and over again. And, we're not helping these juveniles that are creating these crimes. Back in, I think it was 2015.
Under Governor Malloy.
We tried, or it was tried to propose this new way of handling the juvenile crimes, but unfortunately, I think it kind of backfired. The fact that there is no repercussions, and the individuals that are committing these crimes on a daily basis realize that there's no repercussions. Therefore, they're going to continue to do it. And if they start doing, car thefts, or maybe starting with maybe just stealing some change out of a car, or taking a pocketbook or something out of a car, and then they take the car. Then they start joyriding with the car. Maybe they start committing other crimes with this car. If they get caught and there's zero consequences and repercussions for the crime they committed, all they're going to do is keep doing it again. And we're not helping those juveniles because they're not going to just stop at 18. We definitely have to sit down and see how we could help the juveniles that are committing these crimes. But most importantly, help the constituents that are law-abiding citizens that are afraid, because I'm sure you're getting these calls, to go to the supermarket during the day because they're afraid their car or they're going to get robbed. And we cannot have that. And we're fortunate enough that we have, both in the district that I represent and here in North Haven, great leadership when it comes to our elected officials and chiefs of police to make sure we're going to be proactive and not reactive.
But even saving that, I agree with you, but in Hamden, which is not our district, an 84-year-old woman was, I think it was like 8:30 in the morning, when an officer was telling me this story, was robbed, knocked down, took her wallet, took her pocketbook, took her car, and the kids got caught. But they said right to the officer, you can only hold me 6 hours. So the current law now, if you're under 18, and most of these crimes are between 13 and 15-year-old kids, 16-year-old kids, they know, unfortunately, that you could only hold that juvenile for 6 hours or less. They're not going to be fingerprinted. If they go to court, the judge, it's a sealed record. They don't know how many times that young juvenile, young kid was arrested, how many times, if it was a sexual assault, if it was physical assault, if it was stealing a car, knocking an older woman down. And those are the things that, if there were repercussions, I think you would see a change. And you want to help everybody. And unfortunately, we're not in a perfect world. But I think if kids, we have an accelerated rehabilitation program now. We have a DCF program. We have mentoring and coaching programs. They're not utilized. We're not utilizing them. So we're trying to, the Republican House and Senate, with some Democrats, are trying to go back to special session, to address this problem for public safety and for these kids to have a better life. I'll tell a story. I wasn't a perfect teenager by any means, but me and my friends, there was a place in North Haven called Corey Pond. It's behind Quinnipiac now. And you had to pay to go fish. I know it's a goofy story in today's world, but I used to love to trout fish. I rode my bicycle to Muddy River, Mill River, the Farm River, wherever I could go catch trout, I would go. My friends, or we'd go behind Pipers and go fishing for bass back there, or eels. Well, apparently a lot of the teenagers, and we're all about 15 years old, and once what I would pay to go to Mr. Corey. Corey is called Corey's Pond. He pays like $8 to catch 2 trout, and many times I catch them, throw them back as long as they would stay alive, just catch them on the lip, and then I'd keep my 2 and go home. Well, it was Easter night, and all the guys in the area were going for like 2 or 3 weeks trout fishing. I said, I'll go tonight. We had to sneak over the fence, and Mr. Corey, they caught us. Mr. Corey put us down we had shotguns on, all of us, but there were mainly adults with us. There was like 5 or 6 kids, 5 or 6 of my buddies. We had to go to get fingerprinted. I was locked in the jail for part of the night. My parents were furious. They were friends with the town. The town was much smaller then. Friends with all the cops, and I knew a lot of them because I just knew them from my father. I had to go to court. I lost all my fishing gear, never got it back. It scared me. It scared the crap out of me, to be perfectly honest with you. And I was wrong, and I became good friends with Mr. Corey eventually. God rest his soul, he passed, and I'm friends with his daughter. But I know that sounds like maybe a goofy story.
No.
But I got in big trouble for trout fishing, and I felt I basically stole his fish, if you think about it, and I was wrong.
Yeah. And just look at what's happening now. People are stealing cars and physically assaulting people to get these vehicles, and they're not getting arrested.
No.
They're actually not getting arrested because it makes it very challenging for officers to do their jobs, like sending a carpenter to go build a house, but say, hey, we're going to take away all your tools, we're going to give you a screwdriver, go try to build your house. A combination of the police accountability bill that just passed in conjunction with the legislation intended to help these juveniles is creating, it's like a chemistry project, a little of this. We have an explosion. We have to actually do something that's going to make a difference in the general public's life and safety, as well as these juveniles. You mentioned DCF in your story. It's easy to say, hey, we have a problem, and say, this isn't great. But what needs to happen is you have to recommend things to solve those problems. In my business, I encourage any of my staff, say, listen, if we can do something better, bring it to us. Just don't say we have a problem. Tell me some of the solutions you would recommend to solve our problem. We cannot take a simple approach to this. We can't just say, let's just try making this small little change. We have a huge problem that's affecting the majority of our citizens, and we have to take action, meaningful action, to help the majority of the general public, as well as these juveniles. And it's not going to be just talking to the police or just talking to the judicial system. We need to start talking to the schools. We need to start talking to DCF. If an individual, a juvenile, continues to get arrested day in and day out and continue to commit these crimes, there's a problem at home. And we have DCF, which is a big organization, or a part of our state department, and they're
our agency, actually.
They're overworked for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt.
But maybe we invest some more funds there, because clearly, if a 14-year-old is going to go out and continuously steal cars, they're in danger. They're in danger from driving a vehicle without a license. Some homeowner may come out and hurt the child, or God forbid, worse. So I think DCF needs to get involved, and that's what we're doing in the Senate, is meeting with all of these other agencies that do have a part, or should have a part, in the solution to this very big problem.
They have these programs now, but for whatever reason, I think part of it is that's why we want to get the judicial branch in, and they want to work with DCF. Because they don't have, they're not even records, but it's sealed. So they don't know, a judge or a court doesn't know how many times I was arrested or you were arrested if you went in front of them. They just don't know. They're seeing that one time. And that's something that it's societal. It crosses across all ethnicities, all ages, all parts of the state and the country. And the biggest thing is accountability and giving the kids a chance, mentoring, either through sports programs or educational or at home. But it's a very complicated subject, but we make it complicated, but I don't think it's that complicated.
I agree.
It's working together and try to help these kids to help us have a better society. I talked to I was away on vacation, went to the beach with my kids, and so I met our police chief. It's something that I know a lot of residents in our districts worry about, kids speeding or adults speeding. It's probably adults. And I said, we're walking back to our house one night, and I see a red light and a blue light. I said, oh, there's somebody at our house, a police officer at our house. I wonder what it was is the homeowner put up, and I let our Chief Glenn know, and I let our first selectman Mike Frieden know, a blue light and a red light, and says, please go slow. Now, obviously, during the day, you're not going to see that, but in the evening, you could see the blue light and the red light. And maybe it's very inexpensive. It's a sign with 2 lights, and maybe that will help slow be
Sure.
creative to slow traffic down.
Sure, it's a deterrent.
I get a lot of phone calls on that, and then I call the department, and they're great, and they respond, but there's only so many officers to
handle those type of situations, and clearly they have their hands full and they're understaffed, as we were talking about earlier. But you're right, it's a deterrent. Just in my security business, I'd have people call and say, hey, can you do me a favor and put a camera up over there on that tree? And I'm like, there's no power. There's no way for the camera to work if we put it on the tree. And they say, well, just give me the biggest camera. I don't care if it works. It's just a deterrent. To try something with a minimal investment, and if it could help out and deter just a few people from speeding, it could be the matter of an accident or not an accident.
I think it makes sense. So, speaking about our officers, we have a great fire department in North Haven and Wallingford and East Haven and Durham. We're friends with quite a few of them. They do a great job. When an officer's on the, it seems like tonight our subject mostly is public safety, but this is something that affects all of us. But our fire department, they go to so many calls. They're helping so many people, not just fires, but either cardiac arrest or something medical, and they do a great job. But unfortunately, it's August 23rd, September 11th. 20 years. Were you born September?
Yes, I was born. Yes.
I'm just teasing.
I was in high school. It's something.
20 years is coming up. Sadly.
It's something that you'll never forget where you were at that time and hearing that news. And it's funny, that joke to say that I was born. I'm glad that you think I'm that young. I wish I was that young, but
I was young then.
It was a very 20 years, time flies, but that was, something that we should never, ever forget. No. You talk about coming together and in unity and working together for. That's
what I'm getting. That's where I'm going.
Well, I'll let you go with that, because you're going right down the right path. So please.
Well, my dad has passed, and he fought in World War II, and I'll probably get a little emotional. But that day, it was so just tragic. And I asked him, he just he didn't, he took it all in, but I think it brought back a lot of memories from Pearl Harbor. But, as bad as it was, and it was horrific, and we lost people from North Haven. My buddy's cousin was killed there. So many people were killed tragically. But we came together as a country. Mm-hmm. And it shouldn't take a tragedy like that. It should be every day respecting each other. We might have differences, but respecting each other. But our law enforcement and our fire department, they just did their job, and so many were killed, not asking questions, just going up those towers and saving lives. And people forget how 20 years ago they were so revered, and now it's, bothers me that there's so much animosity towards our people that I believe do a great job overall. Are they perfect? Nobody's perfect. But our firefighters and our police, God bless them, and their families.
Absolutely.
So the families have to put up with so much.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree anymore. And that I think about that quite often. And 9/11 was a great example of that. But every day, somebody calls 911.
Yeah.
First responders go running towards the issue, and they respond all the time. And unfortunately, all the good things that are happening in law enforcement and in the first responder world, we don't hear about the good things.
There's a lot of good stuff. We
just had a firefighter, 41 years, retire from North Haven. 41
Chris
years
Murray.
Of service.
Yeah.
Chris Murray, yes. That's just amazing. you don't hear enough about those good stories where every day they're helping people. And like you said, there's bad actors in every profession, from politicians to doctors,
everywhere,
lawyers, all the way. And the majority of the doctors, politicians, lawyers, and police officers are
and
good.
Firefighters,
are good, and they do a job, and they do a very hard job. They see a lot of different things. I was in law enforcement, and you don't see the best of what the world has to offer, unfortunately. And still every day they go to work knowing that they just want to help somebody. So I think it's important, especially with 9/11 coming up, that we pay attention to the sacrifices that the first responders and their families make every single day. Every day.
We'll be at a ceremony at the North Haven Green at 9 a.m. The 11th. But we, I did a ride along a couple of years ago. I might have said this on NHTV with Officer Falcon, Matt Falcon, and then Chris Thorpe. I did an 8-hour. I did from one shift to the next shift. A lot of stuff happened that night in North Haven. There's deaths by suicide. We were pursuing. There's 2 domestic violences. One led to a death by suicide. Right in our town, and I don't. God bless them. I couldn't do that. I served a brief time in the Navy Reserve, but to be an officer day in and day out, or a firefighter, it's just amazing. But I would hope we respect each other, and that if people do something wrong, they're held accountable. And when people are doing things right, like my father's generation, and when they fought in the war, and they came back. They just went about society and helped people, and I think that's what you see most people do in law enforcement and fire service.
Absolutely.
And we have a great volunteer fire department in North Haven. People forget that we just don't have the career firefighters who do an amazing job. Many of them started out as volunteers, either in Northeast, West Ridge, or Montauk, and now there are career firefighters, or if they're not career, they're still volunteering, and they do a great job. We did some stuff this last year and the year before to help them with some of their tax liability, and so.
Absolutely. They do a phenomenal job, and North Haven did a great job of putting together a CERT team, which we had the privilege of a few months back to going to swearing in of a few new CERT volunteers who do so much in a storm. They will direct traffic or help out with crowd control or deliver water or food to people in need. They do a phenomenal job. And that's a big thanks to our Chief of Fire, Paul. He does just a phenomenal job of organizing that and putting the right people in charge of the program, and it's doing a great amount of good for our town.
CERT is Community Emergency Response Team, and it's a group of volunteers, like Paul said, in our town and in Hamden and in local areas that just, when the house blew up a couple years ago on Quinnipiac Avenue? Quinnipiac. They were there. I remember coming home from the Capitol about midnight or 11:30, and they were there helping with bedding, coordinating, like you said, and on their own time, working with the fire department, working with local police. They do a very, very good job. And I don't know if I mentioned Luca Pola, I think is
coordinator.
He's like one of their coordinators.
Yeah.
And you go to the local concerts on the Green. I only went to 2 this year. They're there every Tuesday night, making sure everybody's okay, making sure the crowd's okay. If there's any, remember 2 years ago, there's a medical emergency. They're right there. They brought the police over, and they're a great group of volunteers. I've seen in 11 years being North Haven State Representative, so many amazing volunteers, so many people that give back. It's just wonderful. And I think that's the case in a lot of towns, but it's just nice to see people giving back and being part of a good community. And that's what makes the community is the volunteers, the teachers, the firefighters, the police, the scout leaders, the coaches.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that we mentioned scout leaders. I have the privilege of attending my first Eagle Scout ceremony. And I made a comment when I had the opportunity to address the individual that was getting to become an Eagle Scout, which I believe 7%. So
it's
7
a little lower than that, but it's close.
Out of 100 people that starts in the Scout program actually make it to Eagle Scout. And they talk about their rules and kind of what they stand for and their values. And I was listening, and I said, if everybody could go by those values, the world would be a better place. And it kind of segue into, we'll talk a little about the workforce development stuff that I'm working on in different districts, and you brought it to my attention here, that they're going to hopefully start to
I'm glad you brought that
implement
up.
some workforce development. But, I think it gets back to what we were talking about with the juvenile issue, is teaching our children and the youth that civic responsibility is important, and we need
It's a good thing, though.
to bring it very good, and we need to bring more of our youth, I guess, to the table to really understand how much value is in that, from CERT, from volunteer firefighters, to doing what the Eagle Scouts do. If we just stop doing that and we stop teaching our children the value of that, who's going to be the scout leader? Who's going to be the next CERT volunteer? Baseball coach, firefighter. We really have to teach the value of our community and sense of civic obligation to our children, and respect. Respect.
Lead by example, and be a good citizen. And that Eagle ceremony, that was my old troop. That was my old Boy Scout troop, and I
Didn't you create that? You found that you were the first.
Myself, Walt Sadek, Rich Lopresti, Bob Jamakowski. I don't want to leave anybody out. That I gave a moment of silence for our first quartermaster, my friend, who was so instrumental in our troop. Brett Horn passed. Mike Frieda was very close with. He did so much, and all those events bring so many people together, and to spending time outdoors and helping one another. But it's all you hit on some really good points. And Paul and I are going to meet with Banta Construction, our superintendent, and our Anita Anderson, our chairwoman of Board of Education, to try to bring more trades. I spoke at Southern University last month about materials and manufacturing, and one of our North Haven tech ed teachers was there, I think Mark Fagan, and we spoke. And so Paul and I met with them last week, and we're going to have a meeting hopefully next week to try to bring some more tech into the school and trades into the school, and give kids hands-on approach to. So not everybody's academically. You're still going to get your academic education, but you want to have practical and physical touching something, building something, making something. I'm a big historian. I love history. And Ben Franklin, one of our greatest founding fathers, I think. I probably bore you when I talk about Ben Franklin.
No.
But he always believed in accomplishing something every day, even if it's just sweeping a floor, nailing a nail into a board and putting something together, or reading a book, or doing something to help somebody. Just try to have some small accomplishment. And so we're really trying to do that. I think we could make some headway with that, Paul.
I think it's so important for a few different reasons. I hear from businesses all throughout the district that they cannot find qualified labor. And I asked, well, what are the qualifications? And they said, have a high school diploma, be willing to work hard, and stay awake, and not use narcotics. And they could make up to 50 to 80 grand a year coming out of high school. The kids have more technology in these cell phones here than we have, that went to the first ship to the moon.
Yeah,
and
it's amazing.
They know how to operate them, and that's what our manufacturing is looking like. It's not the days of being in a machine shop. And the kids need to know that there is professions that you could go to we're talking about firefighters.
I got to wrap it up, sorry.
I'll be very quick. We were talking to a Wallingford Fire Department, and they need firefighters. And if you take a year and a half class to be a paramedic, you could go be a firefighter and make $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Or go get a job in a manufacturing plant and make $90,000 a year.
The show goes so fast. We have to wrap it up. But we'll be back again. We're going to have office hours again in September. Just follow us, either paulchiccarella.com or daveyaccarino.com. But it's a pleasure to be with North Haven, our 34th district, and have hope and be good to each other and be kind. Thank you.
Thank you.